Salam, namaskar, sat sri akal, adab. Do you see the old look on my face? Because I have a very young entrepreneur in front of me. But more importantly, he's a brother, he's a maverick, he's a Sardar, he's a distinguished gentleman. He was the ex-president of Lemon Tree. But more importantly, he has seen right from the lowest and he has risen to the highest office in any hospitality industry. Vikramjit, welcome to Talk with Kunal Vasudeva. It's an absolute pleasure. But before I even start this kind of conversation, Vikramjit today is the founder and the chairman of Alivaa Hotels, right? And he has another brand called Hofton. But throughout the conversation, we're going to unpeel many, many layers of Vikramjit as a person. Of course, his leadership style. What is Aliva all about? What is Hofton all about? Where is the hospitality industry in India kind of going? And this one is going to be a little explosive conversation for the simple reason he speaks his mind. It's going to be unfiltered, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. For the younger audience, it would be business economics explained of how to run an asset-light hotel company as well. Right? So Vikramjit, Sat Sri Akal ji, how are you doing?
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having me on the show. The young is only because the prerequisite of coming to Kunal's show is that I have to paint my beard black. So this is not the real color. Yeah, I'm a fairly old man.
So how are you doing?
Good, Kunal, and I'll try and make it as controversial as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Because you are that kind of a man, right? You have seen it all. You've been a revenue officer, you've been a sales officer, you've been a CEO, you've been a president, and now, of course, you've been a chairman, right? And you have seen the rungs across how it really happened. So it's really important for us to kind of deep dive into the fact that what really works, what does not work, right? And in this case, you are a veteran hotelier as well. But more importantly, demystify this kind of entire industry. And in the next 20 years, where India is kind of growing, and I'm an ever optimist on India, right? I always say, if there is any money coming in, put it on India.
No, I've seen your TED talk, and I think it was pretty impressive. Yeah. And your take on India, the India story was phenomenal. Yeah,
I truly believe so. Whether markets go up, markets go down, the next 15 to 20 years,
belongs to India.
I think it belongs to India, and we will capitalize on this dividend of energy more than anything else, and that momentum which India has today, right? Thanks to everyone. What a Mayo.
So to summarize what Kunal said, मैंने जूते बहुत घिसाए हैं जिंदगी में.
मैंने भी बहुत अभी भी घसा रहा. Can you believe it? अभी भी घसा रहा हूँ. मुझे एक चीज बता, मेयो कॉलेज, SRCC,
and then hoteliering. One has to be a little off your mind to do.
Especially 20-30 years ago. Because obviously there is that little stigma to the industry at that point in time.
So I wouldn't say stigma, but you're right. BCom honors ke baad, people coming in joining hotels is very rare. Right. And I was a rarity. Good or bad, I don't know. Yeah. But the industry has been kind. My career has been good. I have no reasons to complain. But yeah, it's a very rare combo. Yeah. People don't join hotels. And I'll tell you how this happened. It's a very interesting story. So when I was graduating out of SRCC, back in the day, Taj was launching the MT program. It was then called the Graduate Management Training Program, or the GMT. And this was on the lines of the Oberoi program. And Taj didn't have a program back then, and only Oberoi's did. So they went to college, they looked at non-hotel school grads, and they went to the top universities and the top colleges of India.
This would have been what?
1996. Yeah, exactly. So I was the third batch. They started the program in 93.
You just given away your age anyway.
I am, like I said, I've painted my beard black, so. So they were very keen to, replicate what the Oberois have done very successfully for very many years. So this program was just starting off. It was being run by a gentleman called Mr. Virender Kumar Oberoi, a real maverick, ace hotelier back in the day. I mean, the people who are watching this show may or may not have heard about him, but the older lot definitely know him and and hold him in very high regard. So this program was starting off, they were looking at non-hotel school graduates. They were looking at, it was called the Graduate Management Training Program. So you're typically looking at, it was a postgraduate diploma program.
I got it.
So,
essentially they wanted to make future leaders, and they were looking at the best institutions, getting the right kind of a talent and exposing them to an industry which they were not exposed to.
Predominantly that.
Am I right?
But that's the sanitized, correct version. I'll tell you my version. Yeah. So there were, when you're typically passing out of college, you have got different recruiters coming in. So you had the consultants, you had the chartered accountants, and you had Taj putting up a stall there. And the most glamorous stall was Taj. So I said, let me walk there and see what happens here. I told you, sach bologa yaar. I won't give you sanitized versions of.
No, but Vikram, tell me something. Again, as I say, there is a certain, I would say, kind of students who get into Mayo. Of course, SRCC has always been a very aspirational. You need to be on the highest percentile cutoff to get into SRCC. Did you get any resistance coming from back?
Not really. So, Kunal, my background was of hotels. So my father ran the oldest hotel in Assam.
Right.
So I was very intrigued to know more about the business. While I had grown up in the environment of a hotel, but that was, a small family-run boutique hotel. Yeah. And I wanted to know more about the business. And there was no way to, no better way than to join Taj in a very formal setup, join India's largest hotel company and learn the ropes of the business, and no better way to do it than join the management training program.
At that point in time, was it that let me understand the Taj,
exactly,
it was an iconic brand, and let me bring in the good practice back to my hotel, which was
absolutely. So I'll tell you what happened. It was not to understand Taj per se, but to understand the business. And joining the biggest hotel company would be the best way to do it. And a management training program was the icing on the cake, because they taught you everything. They taught you departments. They had on-job training. They had theoretical classes. You had external faculty coming in. You had the best and the maximum possible exposure. So that was the intention, to do hotels for a few years, understand the business, and then take it back home and grow that business and bring it out of Assam to the north of India, to Delhi.
Kind of intriguing as well, because if you look at, let's say, Oberois, you rightly mentioned, Taj, 1995. Oberoi predates that by
of course,
at least 2 decades, right?
Maybe more, huh?
Jet at that point in time, they all got into this management development kind of a program, right? They were actually looking 10 years hence, 15 years hence, and how do we build the next brigade of leaders?
Absolutely, right?
Because for this particular industry, there is no external course. Let's say if you want to be a computer science engineer, you can still get into computer science engineering, a mechanical engineer, mechanical engineering. But hospitality, right? It's so agnostic.
And very limited opportunities back then. They weren't the fancy private schools like the one you run, actually. Yeah. He was fishing for compliments, guys, so I had to give it to him.
But it's not only fancy, but it's really making an impact.
I am very certain about that, yeah.
So for even Taj at that point in time to kind of look 20 years hence and, and make the future leaders, right? So do you believe that the 3 years, 4 years that you spent at the Taj, right, was that fantastic foundation for you?
Super foundation, because I'll tell you, in 2 years, I learned everything that you need to know about the business. We did on-job training, we did theoretical classes. Like I said, we had external faculty. We got exposed to the finest luxury hotels in the country, which even today are very iconic. So phenomenal. And after that, what happened was that I had a tragedy in the family. I lost my dad, so I had to go home and run the family business, which is, like I had mentioned earlier, a hotel. So I ran my own hotel. But let me tell you a very interesting thing. Running your own business, totally hands-on, and you're suddenly thrown into the fire. It's like you pick a kid and throw him into the pool who doesn't know how to swim. Because back then, it was only theoretical. It was a job. It was a program. I had never run a business, you see. And here I had to run every aspect of that business. And let me tell you, that small boutique hotel, which I ran for 5 years after my father's demise, was an education which I was very fortunate to receive. And not everybody can get access to that exposure. It was tough. There were days when I had tears in my eyes, but the learning was immense.
But isn't that the best way of doing it?
It is absolutely the best. And I attribute a large part of my success at Lemon Tree, the growth I had in Lemon Tree, also because of that exposure of running your own business, no matter how small it was.
Yeah.
But being an entrepreneur, being a hustler, being responsible for everything, you don't have department backing up, you don't have corporate office backing you, you don't have institutions in other countries backing you, you don't have nobody. The buck stops with you.
Absolutely right.
You fail, business shuts.
Absolutely right. At the end of the day, you do
scary.
not know where your money is going to come from.
Yeah,
Right?
you are responsible for everything.
Yeah.
You have to pay your salaries.
Yeah.
You have to pay your taxes. And you've got to take care of the family, everything. So the buck stops at you.
Yeah. And
there is no big daddy or...
You're absolutely right. If you ask the entire Gujarat, right, and to our Gujarati friends who would be listening to this, right, and they advocate this, and see, I'm a Bombay product, and I lived amongst Marwadis and Gujaratis out there, right, and they advocate this. This narrative I've been hearing from 1970s. I'm sure it kind of predates that as well. And they would say, he's saying, you know what, get into it. Unless you don't get into it, unless you don't burn, right, in the first 2 years, you're never going to learn. You just need to burn yourself.
Completely.
So it's not a burn monetary strategy, it's a burn yourself strategy.
It's called baptism by fire, if you ask me.
It's called baptism by fire.
And I was very lucky to get it. One doesn't choose it. Yeah. It happens to you. Destiny planned that for me. And today when I look back, I'm so happy it happened, because this learning cannot be replicated.
Did you become a man?
I hope so.
No, at that point in time.
A little too early in life.
A little too early
in life.
Yeah. If you had to rewind, what would you change? Of course, Dad to be there with you.
Of course. But I'll tell you, when you look back, there are a lot of good things, bad things, positives. But where you are today, and you're happy with where you are today, you are satisfied, you're doing well, and why do you want to go back and rewind anything? Because something can go wrong anywhere. And if life is perfect, then it's not life. Then you're not living.
But do you reflect back?
Very often. Very, very, very often. And in fact, like I was saying...
Would that be in silence, or would that be...
Yeah, in our business, silence milta nahi hai. Especially, let me tell you, once you turn entrepreneur, people say, you choose your working hours. Let me tell you, and I was telling this to somebody, that physically I can choose my working hours. I can decide when I want to come to work, what time I want to leave. But mentally, boss, I work 24/7. I just can't switch off. So this working hours is very cliche. The question is, and the reality of entrepreneurship is that you cannot switch off. But you are on 24/7.
But I asked your colleagues in Lemon Tree. I have to do my homework on you also, my brother.
Oh my God!
And right from...
Are you scaring me, by the way?
No, not at all.
And this wasn't in your question paper,
Not at all.
You're going out of syllabus, but anyway.
Totally out of syllabus. But that's the personality that you are, right? You don't need a syllabus. It's a life lesson everyone will get. Even when you were an assistant manager sales.
That's where I started from.
I know. You were always a micro entrepreneur. You owned your, sorry to say, SHIT back then. Right? You owned it. Was it within you? Were you always a personality like that who just would own it?
In fact, let me tell you a very interesting thing. Someone was asking me, you started over Lemon Tree, you to get back into mainstream. Why didn't you look at, joining a bigger company? Because Lemon Tree back then was also a startup. I said, if I had joined any other company except Lemon Tree, I would have got sacked in 2 months.
Got it.
Because I'm not somebody who went by the book. I'm not somebody who said, ye SOP hai, to ye karo. I was like, ye kamre hain. If there are 100 rooms in one hotel of mine, which I am responsible for, I want all those 100 rooms full. Even if the market only can produce 200 rooms, I'm okay with that other 100 going to 20 other hotels. I want the first 100. So that's the way I thought. I was a little wacky. I was a little crazy. आधा पागल भी हूँ मैं.
अच्छी बात है.
ठीक है, ऐसी हरकतें करता हूँ. But I went hammer and tongs, and I took... The word was ownership. It wasn't that I was being paid a salary then, and I had a hotel which was my own, so I worked any differently, or I thought any differently, or behaved any differently. And I'm ever so grateful to my ex-boss and the chairman who let me behave and let me be the way I am, and let me play this, be an intrapreneur in an entrepreneurial startup.
But tell me something. Between Patu and of course the team, and eventually when you were president at Lemon Tree, right? You created a new category by itself. It never existed. You laid the foundation for everybody else to kind of come in. Right? Here there was a home, and this is what I love about brands like Taj and Oberoi's and let's say Lemon Tree. made for India, made in India, capital from India, right? Giving back in India, right? There's no flight risk because you are invested completely. Again, way ahead of where India was, even how Patu was thinking at that point in time. ये कैसे हुआ? How did this lemon tree become the giant that it kind of became?
So let me just say that the brain behind all of this was Patu. He was the one who created the so-called mid-market category. We were very lucky to be a very integral part of that journey. We were with him. I mean, I joined when Lemon Tree was one hotel. And when I left, it was 101 hotels.
मुझे एक चीज बता. Of course, he was the king. But he had kingmakers like you. Do you think without the kingmakers, would he?
Well, let's just say that we were quick learners and we executed his vision. And there was no better teacher than him. You know, like.
What was that? Let's decode that.
I'll tell you. So like they say, now what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. And I had to go to Harvard Business School to learn what they don't teach you.
We'll talk about that as well later. But yeah. But आप मुझे वो बताइए. What was this?
See, I'll tell you 2-3 things about Patu. First is that, you know, there are people or there are leaders or there are, you know, business owners who like to keep information to themselves. With Patu, it was always over communicate. Teach. There's nothing that you need to hide. There's nothing that you don't want your team to know. Teach. Share. Expose. Expose them to everything. That is one very good quality that I learned. It was always over information, never under information.
I'll tell you where the story really gets intriguing, right? For Lemon Tree is also at that point in time there was a Taj and Oberoi's, and these were asset-owned companies, right?
So was Lemon Tree, by the way.
Exactly, right? At a time where capital was also very expensive, right?
And not easily available.
Predates the VC funding era as well, right? Predates the family office era as well. Largely debt funding, right?
Not really, because it started with, like I said, while Lemon Tree created the category of mid-market hotels, even the whole VC funding into this space started with Lemon Tree. The real big funding was when Warburg put in money into Lemon Tree. So I think in that sense, Patu was again a first.
Was again the pioneer in kind of.
Was again a first in that, yeah.
From that perspective.
To attracted capital into a business or into an industry which was written off.
Fair enough. You had access to capital, right? How did the acceleration happen? Today you have access, there's so much of capital available to startup founders as well. And we'll talk about Aliva a little later, right? But they accelerate, but at the end of the day, they burn, all right, and eventually burn out, right? How did Lemon Tree stay the course and became a public company eventually?
See, I'll tell you, in Lemon Tree, the premise from day one, it was probably the Sindhi DNA of Patu was always earn before you burn. We never went the reverse route. It was never burn, build a brand, then we'll start earning. Never.
So cash flow.
100%. You know, you could not burn 1 rupee which you had not earned. So it was very clear, earn before you burn. That was the philosophy with which he started. Secondly, and most importantly, which also worked in his favor, was the cycle. It was the start of the cycle. It was his genius to say that, you know, and this is his theory, which he's spoken in many forums, and I love to repeat it whenever I get a chance, is that back in the day, in India, if you look at the hotel market, it was like the car market of the 80s. You had these imported luxury cars, and then Nietzsche, you only had ambassadors and Fiats. There was nothing in the middle. Maruti is what created the car category of India.
Correct.
So in many ways, Lemon Tree also created the mid-market category because you had the Taj and Oberoi's of the world, the ITCs of the world, the brilliant hotels, and you had nothing at the bottom. There were some standalone hotels, but there wasn't a consistent chain of mid-market hotels. And not everyone back then or today can afford the luxury brand. So what do? There wasn't an option available which was pan-India, which had footprints across the length and breadth of the country. And this was a wide open space which was waiting to be taken. And Patu, with his excellent execution, just grabbed it.
And eventually it was a asset owned and became...
So the reason, I'll tell you, the reason Lemon Tree went asset heavy was actually to go asset light. And I'll explain to you what I mean. Because the category didn't exist. You had to create the category.
True.
Which means that you had to build the prototypes.
So right.
You had to prove your business model. You had to build those. You had to build those smaller rooms You had to build hotels with lesser F&B. You had to cut the frills out, and you had to have a prototype ready. And therefore, you needed to build the first few hotels, to build the prototype, to validate the business concept, to get proof of concept. And therefore, today, there are people who come and say, okay, listen, we'll build to your specs. So to create the category, you have to be asset heavy, only so that you become large enough and people then build hotels as per your specs and you go asset light.
If you go back to that era, right, you built a new category.
Yeah.
There were luxury brands which were available. The American brands were coming in, right? How did you attract talent?
Because not so much in the mid-market space, let me tell you. They were all in the deluxe and luxury space.
I understood that. You have a limited pool of professionals available to you in hospitality. It exists even today, right? Hence, we say there is a mismatch in supply and demand, right? But how did you manage to attract the right talent? Because obviously the talent had access to a Taj and Oberoi and let's say these American brands who are coming, some of the European brands who had kind of come in at that point in time. So building that category also requires mass. In here, the mass means people, talent. How did Lemon Tree A, attract, B, retain?
So I'll tell you, Lemon Tree had a very interesting tagline back then. It said, we hire for attitude, we train for skills. So I think when we went about looking for people, the first and foremost was attitude. I think the inherent culture of Lemon Tree back then, which was a small startup, and whoever joined from different cultures, from different organizations, just like magic, imbibed that very strong culture of ownership, of entrepreneurship. Because we were like semi-entrepreneur. We used to call ourselves intrapreneur because we were within a larger...
Because when you look at mass, right? The collective energy. The energy is equal to...
Absolutely. That's the right word I was looking for. It was a collective energy which contaminated...
was going in one direction.
Right? Which contaminated everybody in a very positive way.
Yeah.
And everybody thought and felt and acted like that.
So
with a huge sense of ownership. The tagline is huge sense of ownership. That's what the culture of Lemon Tree was all about.
And that's where perhaps Taj, your own entrepreneurial journey, after of course Dad's demise, and then you got into Lemon Tree. At what stage did you start believing that, you know what, I can rise and I can be the president? At what stage did you have that confidence in yourself?
So I think
because it must have come much earlier. It can't be. Of course, it's progressive.
I don't know if one can. One has aspirations. One always dreams for bigger and larger responsibilities. But if you ask me, when was I thought I was from day one. I was ready, but obviously I knew jack shit. So that's not the thing. I think it's the journey. And as you take on larger roles, as you take on greater responsibilities, as you start moving out of your own, the box that you're in, the department, the badge that you wear, and you start looking at more holistic view of things, is when you realize that, there is you can do so much more. And I think the organization also recognizes and realizes and watches that. So my little advice to all, young budding hoteliers would be that, please don't confine yourself to your department, to your designation, to your appointment letter saying you are F&B or you are food and beverage or you are front office. Please think like business owners. You are the CEO of your hotel. And even if you may be confined or restricted to one department, do not stop yourself from being inquisitive. Figuring out what's happening in Department B, Department C, Department D, get involved everywhere. Like this Amir Khan movie, 3 Idiots. हर जगह ज्ञान बट रहा है, जितना समेट सकते हो समेट लो यार.
Basically, you're saying adjacencies of knowledge.
Absolute. The
skill.
Which comes from inquisitiveness.
Of course. And it's a very inherent
So you got
trait.
to train yourself to be inquisitive.
Yeah.
There are people to teach you. There is knowledge everywhere.
It's how much you want to grab.
Exactly. It's how much you're inquisitive about.
Vikramjit, tell me something. You say Lemon Tree went, of course, everyone knows about the fact from 1 to 100. That journey was 10 years?
1 to 100 was 18 years.
18 years, right? And that's literally like the growth is absolutely compounded. Right? The people also had to compound their skill. How do you grow? You grow a business and you compound, let's say, at 20%, only if the people compound themselves at
very interesting
various levels at 20%.
Not necessary. To counter that, I will say some compound at 40 or 80%, and some unfortunately don't.
Median.
Unfortunately don't. So see, the harsh reality of being in a startup is that not everyone can scale up at the same pace as the organization, and some people drop off. Some people get left out. And that's the hard fact.
And they get left out is because they did not want to compound themselves and they were happy what they were doing?
I think variety of reasons. Some may not have the intellectual bandwidth. Some people may not have the will. Some people may not have the, a combination of both. So I think, it's, and by the way, let me tell you, a big problem there as a business leader is, it's competency versus loyalty. And that's one tough question which every owner has to answer as he scales up his business, as he grows, as he, because there are people who joined you when you needed them. They were super loyal to you. But today, the demands of your business, the scale at which you are, they may not be able, so they've not kept pace. Let's just say that the competencies have not kept pace. You've got to get people from outside because your business has to grow. So, loyalty versus competency is this question which every business owner has to answer sooner or later. And so did.
But tell me, when you, it's always like a pyramid on top, right? The vision flows down and the energy flows up.
Yeah.
Right? That's typically how it kind of works. To the point when you speak about, let's say, competency versus loyalty, there are two ways to kind of look at it, right? One is, Vikramjit, that the company has given everybody the ability to upskill themselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Ability, opportunity.
Which is also very important, right? And the second aspect is, how many of you at that point in time capitalize on that opportunity? Right?
I would say opportunity in a startup is given to everybody.
Correct.
But it's a capability issue. How many people are capable?
Capability upskill bhi ho sakta hai, right? I may be slow, right? You may be 2 years ahead of me, but I will catch up.
See, I'll tell you, I don't agree with you completely. You can teach and you can upskill to an extent. Like, let me tell you, familiarity with numbers. Listen, if you don't have it, in your 30s or your 40s, you can't grab it.
I understand that. If people who are not familiar with numbers would not even...
Just one example I'm giving you.
Yeah.
I can teach you 20 other things of the business, but I can't get you familiarity with numbers. I can't build a commercial acumen if you don't have it. So therefore, you drop off, boss, because as business leaders, you do less and less of the tactical shit and you do more strategic stuff. And these things become important. And in my view, and I know, you are from the field of education, but I feel there are some things which are very difficult. Commercial acumen आप नहीं सिखा सकते, या एक हद तक ही सिखा सकते हो. Familiarity with numbers आप नहीं कर सकते.
But if somebody is inquisitive and has that adjacencies, I will develop that skill, then there's no issue.
See, determination plays a very important role. And I think that if somebody is willing to work extra hard and overcome these natural deficiencies, people do well, yeah. I'm not saying that every single guy in the industry who's a senior leader is an Einstein, yeah.
So I'll ask you a question. Talent, loyalty, or competency?
At different stages of the organization, the answer will be different. There is no one set answer for this. Let me be politically correct for a change.
How was your journey with Lemon Tree, this entire IPO thing which has happened? Because that's like a completely different beast altogether, right? Was that something, again, like literally a milestone aspect even in your career?
Not just in my career, but I think there are very, very, very few hotel professionals who can talk about taking a company public. While, Patu, of course, was spearheading the whole thing, but I was very, very, very lucky to be an integral part of that journey. I was with him all the way through. We did the road shows together, and every meeting, every interaction was a big learning for me. And I think in many ways, the fact that I was able to raise money and raise capital for my own business was largely because of the learnings that I had during the IPO process. But phenomenal learning, and not everybody, this is something which not everybody can have, because how many companies have gone public?
And to the viewers who perhaps think, the natural transition for our funded companies to go IPO, right? And it sounds so easy. What are the difficulties if you can break it down?
See, I think the environment, the capital markets were very different back then. Today, everyone's doing an IPO. And I think, if I'm not wrong, there are 4 or 5 hotel IPOs which are going to come.
Even today, there is a lot of domestic money and Indian institutions.
Not just the money, I think it's the flavor of the season. And hospitality is very clearly the flavor of the season. See, back then, there weren't too many listed players, or there were these legacy listed players. They were all there. There was not too much new action. This was a space which was not very well covered. Not too many analysts were covering hospitality.
True. But the fact that Lemon Tree was profitable, unit economics of Lemon Tree was good, you had domestic institutional investors, you had retail investors, they bought into the story because it was not a burn strategy. It was a build.
Agreed. But what I was trying to get at is that the capital markets were not interested in hotels back then. There was no real capital chasing hotel companies.
True.
These were very dormant stocks, so to say. This industry was very dormant because there were other sunrise industries that people were chasing.
You were competing with the techs and you were...
Yeah. So there wasn't too much capital coming into hotels.
So how did this change?
I think couple of reasons. One, Lemon Tree was a bright spark. It was a different story. It spoke about profitability. It spoke about numbers which people had not heard before. The EBITDA margins, everything was phenomenal. The analysts were
tracking other sectors. They were not
even within the hospitality sector. These numbers were very different, and they were a big surprise in a very positive way to a lot of analysts who were then covering the hotel market, which is a very small number. Then, of course, the winds of change came. COVID happened, and post-COVID, the industry, and who will know better than you, took a complete 360-degree turn, and suddenly everyone was interested because everyone was making money. Margins were like better than ever before. Every hotel company was reporting historically high numbers, margins, average rates, occupancies. So everything was just picture perfect.
We'll come to that. And do you think that's sustainable?
100%.
At the end of the day, it's
1000%.
Consistency and sustainability over a period of time.
And I'll tell you why this cycle is different from any other is because, let me ask you a question, and I'm sure you know the answer, but how many branded rooms cater to a population of 140 crores? Leave 140 crores, the consuming population, kitna? There are different metrics. Correct. Some say number of demat accounts, some say number of households, whatever. 15 से 20 करोड़ लोग तो हैं जो पॉपुलेशन जो आपका होटल रूम्स कंज्यूम करते हैं फ्रॉम अ इकोनॉमी प्रोडक्ट ओनली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड
ओके राइट ऑफ द बैट आप 15 से 20 करोड़ 20 करोड़ is 200 million, right? Okay, my number would be about anywhere between 100 to 150.
So what I'm saying is that 2 lakh कमरे हैं बस, 2 lakh कमरे branded rooms in India from a budget economy to a 5-star, 7-star, luxury, deluxe, whatever you call them. There's only 2 lakh rooms. Consuming population, like we said, was 15, 18, 20 crore, somewhere in that zone. So, it needs a structural change which has come in. And therefore, I feel this cycle is very different from the other. And this boom will continue till there is enough rooms to cater to this consuming population which is growing.
People were the same, brands were the same. Of course, COVID was a transformation period for everyone, right? Reflection period for everyone. So when you say structural change, it's not that eventually India just kind of woke up and say, structural change karte hain. So can you further elaborate your structural change?
I'll tell you, what's happened is that the consuming population is different. The age group is different. Today, people don't stay with relatives when they travel. They like their own space, they stay in hotels. I think 300 airports have been announced by 2047. ठीक है, पहले 30 airport भी नहीं होते हिंदुस्तान में. What happens when people are flying to these cities? They need hotel rooms. You see, a lot of convention centers have come up. So that Yashobhumi at Dwarka, by the way, is the second largest convention center in Asia. Can you see the amount of business that's coming to these cities? See what the Geo Center has done to Bombay. Every time there's an event, hotels in a 20-kilometer radius are at lifetime high average rates. Take it or leave it. Okay? There is no, then you don't call a hotel and say, can I get a discount? They say, get me a room. You don't even look at pricing. So another thing, that whether it's Bharat Mandapam or, and there are large expo centers coming up in India.
No, I can understand the scale of the country. And
that's why I'm saying structural. You're from the airline.
Epiphany movement kahan se aaya? Matlab, it can't be just COVID, right?
No,
It was a unfortunate part, but again, I want to kind of get back into it because India was still growing at about 5 to 7% before COVID. Obviously, COVID deaccelerated us, and we are still kind of growing at 5 to 7%. But this,
see, I
would
think
say, Philip,
I'll tell you 2-3 things happened. Yeah, post-COVID, one thing was very clear that people, if they want to stay in hotels, let me tell you, the hotel consuming population was typically very agnostic of brand versus, standalones. One thing is very clear now, post-COVID, and this COVID has brought about, is that people are very conscious of where they stay.
Got it.
What basis what your budget allows, you will stay in that category of a branded hotel.
Hygiene, sanitation, safety.
Absolutely, safety, security, all of that. So there was a very clear shift of consumption from the unbranded to the branded. Which is what
was a transformation even of the mindset that
100%. That is why people have moved from the unbranded to the branded. Which is why every hotel company that you see is declaring insane number of signings. Her hotel company, listed, unlisted, is signing 3, 4, 5 hotels a month here. Where had you seen this before? It's because the customer is very clear. He's made a choice. I want to stay in a branded hotel.
Let's go into the unit economics, right? Again, we'll talk about your new venture a little because the audience will be very interested also to kind of know. To an operating company of a hotel, right, the metrics are very different.
Yeah.
And to the asset owner, the matrix is very different. Because here is the cost of capital, here is everything else, which he will eventually make return of his investment on. And both look at very, very different metrics. Right? ये ROCE देख रहा है और ये EBITDA के ऊपर देख रहा है. Right? Are they both making money? And if yes, and I'll tell you where my skepticism comes from.
Yes.
Land price is extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Right? Construction costs per key, or even general construction costs, steel,
inflation,
cement, and all these things. It's very high. I have, for the life of God, never have understood that in a country like India, whether it's the metro, non-metro, how can the land price vis-a-vis purchasing parity, there be a gross mismatch? मुझे आज तक समझ नहीं आया. Take Gurgaon for instance, right? Forget everything else. If you want a decent semi-luxury housing, nothing less than 8 crores to about 12-13 crores.
It's about 20,000 rupees a square foot today.
कितने लोगों के पास उतना पैसा है? Right? So if you ask a hotel owner, I'm sure if they have access to land which they had bought 20, 30, 40 years ago, that's a different story. But to buy a land today, right, build the hotel, is he also making return on his capital the way, let's say, a hotel company would be making?
So, very interesting question. The first and foremost is the prohibitive cost of land tells you what? It tells you that the cycle, this is, again, I'm going back to your previous question, that the cycle here is here to stay. Was because till the time hotel asset owners make return of even 10 to 12% or even 8 to 10% on their investment, okay, they will not put up hotels, which means that there will continue to be a shortage of supply in this country.
Unless that hotel company does not grow. So my math tells me, unless that hotel company does not grow 30 to 40%, ROC of,
exactly. What I'm saying is that hotels
it has to grow.
Yeah, for it to make commercial sense to put up a hotel, hotels need to continue to grow their RevPARs by 30% year on year.
Going ahead.
Only then makes commercial sense to buy land in today's real estate price and build a hotel. So let me tell you what's going to happen. 2-3 things will happen. I was coming back to my previous data point, 2 lakh rooms. But if you look at the number of rooms listed on, say, India's largest online travel agent, I think 13, 14, 15 lakh kamre listed hai, somewhere in that zone, which is when I last checked. Now, a lot of those rooms maybe, may not be convertible, but 2-3 lakh kamre usme honge jo convert ho sakte hain, who can be brought in from the unbranded to the mainstream.
Got it.
So in my view, 2 things will happen. While new supply will continue to come, but it's a very time-consuming process. The name of the game is conversion.
Got it.
Conversion is where you will get your next set of growth from.
So essentially, if you kind of go back to your earlier business in Assam, you're talking about that conversion?
Exactly.
That property today.
Exactly. Because as a standalone back then versus standalone today, the world has changed. The customer preference has changed. Now, how do I get, how do I get bums on beds in a standalone unknown hotel, boss?
Got it.
Do I have the distribution capability?
Yeah. Premiumization will happen in that segment.
Where as a standalone, I don't have the distribution capability. Boss, मुझे होटल चलाना आता है. मैं गले में बैठा हूँ boss. 50 कमरे का होटल चला रहा हूँ. I'll run the most efficient hotel. I'll have the best cost structure because I'm monitoring everything. But where do I get the distribution bandwidth? Where do I get bums on beds? How do I get people to fill up my rooms? Which is why you will need a hotel brand.
I'll tell you where my contradictions in my also happens, right? Now you're reading about Goa, right? Firstly, oversupply. On the other side, extremely expensive.
I'll tell you, right? Goa mein, what people don't talk about, and this is my view, is alternate accommodation. The way these villas have come up in a very big way, they've taken away a lot of business from hotels. It's not just oversupply or overprice. It's alternate accommodation which no one is tracking.
But the same thing can happen all over India as well, right?
Not really.
Because people don't have second houses. Is that what you say?
No, but boss, if you're in a business city, you've come to Gurgaon for a conference,
you're not going to stay in
for a meeting. You're not going to stay here, boss. अपना कपड़े खुद press क्यों? Who's going to iron your suit in the morning here?
नहीं, मेरा कहने का मतलब क्या था, right? एक तो ओवर सप्लाई कर देते हैं, right? ऊपर से everything becomes so expensive. You're driving away the tourists. At the end of the day, I think Goa is the only place in India which is a confluence of Bharat coming in.
Agreed.
आप मुझे बताओ एक और जगह इंडिया में where India confluences in one city.
No, I think Rajasthan gets a lot of it, but one half of the year, one half of the year people do come. But anyway, there is no second Goa in India.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, Goa has seen a bull run for the longest time ever. Okay, and some price correction because everything was getting exorbitant. And in my view, the reason Goa has taken a beating this year is because of alternate accommodation. The number of villas.
But that's not going to change.
It may not change. No, everything. So see, eventually supply will get absorbed.
Got it.
Eventually there will be people who will go. See, any time when something new comes, everyone goes to try it. And I think the alternate accommodation business is at a trial phase today. There will be adoption. There will be people
for sure, and they'll go through their own learning.
They will go through their own learning. Whatever. There will be people who will want to go back to hotels. So that's due cost. And that is the reason why a large part of the Goa business was driven away from hotels to these alternate
you've been
ACO.
You've been in this industry now 25 years, right? Including SM stint of yours.
Actually more, but anyway.
More? 30 level.
The audience will realize मैं कितना बुढ़ा हूँ, but anyway.
Okay.
I joined hotels in 1996. So in another 2 years, it will be 30 years.
If you just put the math, he's a little shy of 58. I'm just kidding.
Little shy of 50, yeah.
You are a gregarious young man. But, at the end of the day, I'll tell you where my contradictions happen. And hopefully you will answer it for you.
I will surely attempt to.
I'm unable to answer it for myself.
If not, I promise to confuse you at least.
Perfect. Vast country, continent masquerading, right? Nothing, the vibrancy of this country is unparalleled anywhere else in the world. The heterogeneity, right? Because if you look at the US, I think even Kamath said, if you go to Europe in one city, the second city almost looks exactly the same, right? And I completely echo it.
Every 100 kilometers,
everything
food,
is different, right?
Dress,
language. Why haven't India attracted tourism the way perhaps France attracts, Mexico attracts, of course, South Asian country kind of attracts. And somewhere in my mind, we can't blame the government. I blame your industry.
And why would you blame the industry?
And I'll tell you why. Because it doesn't behave like an industry. It behaves
Please elaborate, sir.
And I'll tell you what I do.
We're changing roles now. I will ask and Kunal will answer.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. When you kind of look at the fact that if you take Rajasthan, for instance, right? And how many hotels would have been in Rajasthan in the organized category?
Yeah, Jaipur has as many hotels as any tier 1 city of India.
About 100, 150, I'm assuming?
Much more.
Much more, right? So I don't know those numbers. Let's say Rajasthan has about 400 kind of hotels, right? This consortium of Rajasthan, of owners, brands, everybody. And I think it's such a vibrant kind of a rich heritage travel. Why haven't everybody taken it out there as road shows and promoted Rajasthan? We expect that the government should kind of do it, right? If it is an industry, then you take it upon yourself as well.
See, I'll tell you, it's hotels by itself can't do anything.
But have they done enough?
You need infrastructure.
I totally agree, but have they done enough?
I would say they've attempted enough.
Not from an outsider's perspective.
May not be, but let me tell you why blame hoteliers. You're from the airlines industry, boss. Where were the planes in this year? Yeah? Where were the aircraft till Indigo and Air India made these massive orders?
Can I tell you something? No. It's again the model had to change. The hotel industry, I believe, is 5 decades old in India. Taj and Oberoi laid the foundation.
I would say the real mid-market category was only created 2 decades ago.
Yeah, of course. I'm not talking.
See, they were exclusive and prohibitive.
But there was a hotel as an industry, right? Air India in the 50s and the 60s was this iconic, but
absolutely.
But India was not traveling, right? Less than 1 lakh out of a 700 million population were traveling by air. The industry per se was 1993. Modi Luft, Jet, all these people.
It opened up.
It opened up, but nobody had a playbook.
And nobody survived.
Because they didn't have a playbook.
Agreed.
They had to go through their highs and lows.
Exactly.
Right? But look at Jet at some stage from 0 to about 125 aircrafts. Kingfisher from 0 to about 115, 120 aircrafts. Now, whatever happened to their business was an element of market forces, I would say. Right?
Agreed.
But you had people like Indigo and, of course, now Akasas. They know the history. They know what not to do today.
Totally agree.
They know what not to do. So when they are saying they have 500 and 400 and 600 aircrafts in the next 4 or 5 years, I think they are looking much ahead of the curve, right, of that India growth.
No, they've anticipated it. Boss, see, every
hotel क्यों laggards?
Boss, every country goes through a tipping point.
I'm with
hotel
you.
laggard nahi, I'll tell you. If you look at the last 15 years of data, let me tell you, supply has grown at a CAGR of 15%. It's not small. CAGR.
15% from a low base.
Very low base. The question is, we started on a low base, boss. And therefore, it required a structural change. Look at the number of cars on the road. Look at the consumption of SUVs.
No, I'm with you. I'm full marks to automobile and stuff like that. Hence, my only kind of argument is, Vikramjit, with people like you, right? Of course, the old guards, I would say, and every industry has veterans, right? They did it and they brought it here. But the compounding is on you.
Absolutely, boss.
The compounding is on you. Now you can't go back.
But who's going back? Yeah. Every data point suggests that this industry is going to grow leaps and bounds. Boss, मैं कह रहा हूँ 30,000 कमरे थे 15 साल पहले इंडिया में ब्रांडेड रूम्स आज 2 लाख कमरे हैं.
Super.
ठीक है. And it is only a matter of time and it will be quicker than ever before. This 2 lakhs can become 4 lakhs. It can become 4 lakhs very soon because there is supply sitting there. Like I mentioned earlier. And by the way, that's my focus. Conversion. Conversion is the name of the game. So I'm not banking on new supply coming in.
I'm totally with you.
And these owners, and I'll just take another minute here on this point. These are owners who have their own set of pain points. Boss, ये hotel चला रहे हैं. They don't have the distribution capability, and therefore I think there's a huge opportunity.
And they also know the
and the customer preference changing. They have no option but to come into the mainstream, which means get hooked onto a brand.
So essentially, what you're saying, conversions can happen in 2 or 3 ways. Correct me if I'm wrong. One conversion is happening in the tier 2, right? Better infrastructure, people will travel. There's more domestic surge.
Absolutely.
I think you give an Indian family a car, they will travel. And if you have
but you've given them roads now, boss.
That's what I'm saying. They had the car, right? They're also aspirational. They're getting better cars, right? Scooter wala Maruti le raha hai, Maruti le raha hai, Hyundai le raha hai. And we have given them good roads.
Yeah.
So suddenly 400, 500 kilometers is about 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Away, right?
People are saying Dehradun 2.5 hours.
Correct.
Jaipur, once the last patch connects,
the surge that you're
2 hours from Gurgaon ka hai.
My point was the surge that you're talking about. Do you think it would be domestic led?
100%, boss. You're the aviation guy. You know the airline orders. Yeah. From what I know, every Monday morning, one A320 is going to come into this country.
Between
the
India,
two.
Akasa and Indigo, absolutely.
So, 200 seats into number of flights it takes in a day into number of days.
Correct.
That's the capacity being added every Monday morning in this country.
Yeah.
Boss, those guys are far more savvier than a hotel.
Yeah.
Any hotel company. They've done the math. They've done the numbers. ठीक है sir? 300 airports by 2047. What's it telling you, boss? That this number will go exponentially even before you and I can guess.
But what do you think can go wrong? This is all.
See, I don't know what can go wrong in the macro, world war, countries fighting. But at grassroots level, nothing can go wrong.
Why?
closer, if you look at it from closer to the ground, because the whole India story is now changing, boss. Consumption is happening, roads are being made, airlines are coming in. Boss, 300 airport, aapko pata hai? See the roads, yeah.
I'm with you.
I can get to Dehradun in 3 hours, yeah.
I'm with you. I'm totally.
Look at now, Delhi has an option of another airport. Bombay has another airport.
And not only the roads, now you have even the rail, Vande Bharats and
absolutely,
all those
what
things.
phenomenal trains, yeah.
Excellent. Which comes to the point, क्या सोच रहे थे आप? मतलब अच्छी नौकरी, IPO, I'm sure ESOP भी होगा, right? सब छोड़ छाड़ के,
अच्छे ESOPs थे यार,
हाँ, सब छोड़ छाड़ के, why do you want to become bankrupt? Why do you be? Of course. Congratulations to you.
Thank
on
you.
Both Aliva and Hofton. We'll talk about both these brands, right? But where did this shift again? Was it where you started off?
I think,
with father's property?
I think I was always an entrepreneur at heart. Lemon Tree was a very amazing story, and the reason I stuck on for 19 years because it was semi-entrepreneurial for me. I was allowed to do what I wanted to, and I learned a lot. And like I said, if I had joined a formal, large hotel company, I would have been sacked in 3 months.
Even now?
Now to 3 days. So, like they say, yaar boss, life was getting too comfortable. Life was getting boring. Everything was set. The flywheel had come into effect. Lemon Tree was a great organization, reputation, but सब कुछ चल रहा था. So, what happens here? Boredom sets in. You realize that you need to challenge yourself again. And since I realized that I still have, a decade and a half of working life left for me, why not give it another shot? And because of what we spoke earlier, I think there is no better time to join hotels. Everything is in the favor of hospitality.
Correct.
Demand is like never before. The structural shift has happened. The consumption patterns have changed. Everything is.
But you could have, let's say, become a president of another large hotel company.
Boss, if I had to work, I would have never joined.
You didn't want to. You just
if I had to work, then it was Lemon Tree. If it was a job, it had to be Lemon Tree because I was too close and too emotionally attached to the company and to the founder and the promoter and everybody. But so that was never a choice.
You were used to a salary, Vikramjit. You left it all.
Yeah,
only to become bankrupt again.
Only to pay salaries and not receive any, by the way.
Exactly my point. Right?
That's the fun.
And the fact that you do not know, right? That uncertainty. There is joy in that. There is risk in that. And there is reward in that, right?
True. Completely true, boss. But see, I'll tell you, you've got to look at what your vision is. And what you think of the industry that you're getting into. Like, for example, if I turned entrepreneur pre-COVID, I would have gone bankrupt. Okay?
Timing.
So, timing. So, the first and foremost was timing. I was very, 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 very clear that the industry, and I believe in what I did, and I put money where my mouth is, boss, which is that I feel it's not just a cycle, not just another cycle, it's more structural. Okay? The number of consuming households will dramatically change.
I think when the premiumization is happening, and by premiumization, I really don't mean at a certain segment of India. Across the segment, right?
Okay.
So, unbranded वाले से शायद कोई ओयो में रहने लग जाएगा, कोई ओयो से
ऊपर आ जाएगा,
कोई next
exactly.
level. You know what they say? I'll give you one stat. Every $1 trillion, right? India adds to its economy. 100 million Indians shifts to the next segment.
Next segment, exactly.
100 million.
So that bell curve, just a minor shift in the bell curve will give you a personified increase in consumption of hotel rooms.
And approximately it's about 800 per capita.
Probably.
Yeah. With every trillion, 800 per capita increases.
Exactly. So what is that increase in the GDP will directly correlate to the consumption of hotel rooms, to the consumption of flights, to the consumption to people taking more holidays. So all macros were in favor and continue to be in favor. The infrastructure around was improving and dramatically improving. Okay, so if not now, then when? I didn't want to miss the cycle and wait for the next one.
And was it festering in your mind for a long time?
For a fairly long time, because I was hugely inspired by the Lemon Tree story. I was hugely inspired by Patu, what he's created, boss. Self-made, totally self-created, there was no ancestral wealth, there was no godfather. जैसे Bollywood में बोलते हैं ना कि वो godfather, short father, कुछ नहीं था यार. And I said, listen, let me give it a shot,
जहाँ पाटू खड़े हो जाते हैं लाइन वहीं से शुरू हो जाती है.
He'd love to hear this from you, but
I'll tag him on this.
I don't disagree, by the way. But what I'm saying is that I could not afford to miss the cycle, and I am convinced more now than before that this is the best time to be in hotels.
Let's talk Aliva. Let's talk Hofton, right? Capital कहाँ से आया? Why Aliva? Love the name. You must explain it to the viewers also. Right? It's a beautiful name. It has a very European yet very Indianness to it.
A bit of both.
A bit of both.
Which is basically the only thing which intrigued me about the name, which is why I called it Aliva.
तो Aliva का मतलब क्या है?
Aliva means new beginnings.
Super.
So it resonates with my story. It resonates with my journey. New beginnings, Aliva.
And
it was just perfect. I heard it and I said, यही नाम चाहिए मुझे.
And again, is it a high financial leverage business or a high operating leverage business?
So I'll tell you what it is. I am neither asset light nor am I asset heavy. My approach is very hybrid. So I take these hotels on lease.
Got it.
Like the hotel where you're sitting on is on a 29-year lease. And my business model is very simple. That whatever the owner makes, I make as much. Which means that my hotels are designed, or the locations, my business model, my cost structure is designed to do at least a 55 to 60% GOP.
Correct.
Okay.
And for the viewers, can you explain what is the GOP?
I'll explain that. And I'll tell you why.
With every industry, that GOP is a little.
I'll tell you why. Even if I discount it, because there will be places where I'll have to, where it will be more seasonal, I'll go to resorts. Let's assume that the cutoff is 50%. I do a 50% GOP. Okay, which is my margin, basically. That's what it means.
For GOP,
revenue minus expense. Expense.
All expenses?
All expenses.
So basically what you're saying, COGS plus contributing margin.
Everything. Everything. It's my 50% is what I'm saying.
Both fixed, variable, everything.
So बड़ा simple है boss. मैं अगर lease पे लूँगा, owner को 25 दूँगा, खुद 25 रखूँगा. So because I'm taking the P&L risk, unlike what the industry does today, which is take hotels on management contract where they have no skin in the game.
Got it.
I've always
walk out.
Yeah, I mean, not just walk out, but whether as an asset owner you make money or not, I still get my fees. I get my fees. I may not get the performance fees, but I get the fixed fees.
And you're turning this around.
Yeah.
Right, on its head.
Because see, I had to do something different. I'm not a brand. Why would somebody give their asset to me? So I had to do something different. So what I have done is I take hotels on lease. My typical business model is कि 25 owner के पास जाने चाहिए, 25 मेरे पास आने चाहिए. That's the broad principle. In other words, let me flip it. Yeah. And I'll tell you, interesting, in my business, if the business model plays out the way, I plan to, for every rupee invested, I will make 100% return from year 3, which means, assuming that you take 2 years to stabilize the asset. So let me give you hard numbers. When I take over an asset, I typically have to spend anywhere from 3 to 5 lakhs a key to bring it up to Aliva standards, to bring in the tech.
And that capex is yours?
Yeah, it's mine.
Got it.
Okay. So
because you're refurbishing the hotel,
depending on the state of readiness. Absolutely. Tech, refurb, brand standards, sab mila ke. My philosophy is, and my structure is such that 2 years from now, which is the stabilization period, I should make that 3 to 5 lakhs per room per year for myself post these rentals. That's my business model, boss. पैसे डालो 100% return.
2 साल में.
2 साल बाद. 2 साल में नहीं, 2 साल बाद for every year.
हाँ, मैं समझ गया.
What I'm saying is for every year from year 3 onwards.
So initially आपका थोड़ा सा financial leverage है because the money is coming from somewhere, and after that scale of operating leverage kicks in.
And ramping up basically and stabilization period, which takes 2 years in our business. So 2 साल बाद every hotel should make what I put in every year. You see, 100% return year on year for the entire tenure of the lease. Unheard of, na?
Okay, it is unheard of. And a lot of people will take cue from this as well, which is a good thing.
See, in India, it's all about, ideas everyone has. It's about execution.
I totally agree with you, right? And you would have done your kind of numbers because Excel sheet ka number ek hota hai, execution ka numbers very, very different. But what is I would say the moat of Aliva? What is that moat? Because I'm sure in the same segment, there are other hotels as well, right? So, is the moat only the fact that there is a growth story and I'm coming?
So let me ask you, and I love asking you aviation questions. Who created the low-cost aviation segment? Who was the pioneer of low-cost aviation in India? It wasn't Indigo.
No. It was there, I think.
Yeah. What was the moat for Indigo? Was They entered a category, they refined it, they refined the business model, they saw the gap, and they were the most efficient operators.
And they said pay per use. So you want a better service, you pay as you go.
Exactly. So I don't claim to be a category creator.
Got it.
I am already in a category which is well established, which is there. I want to be the most efficient operator. Like I'll tell you in our business, I'll tell you what I do differently. Like this hotel where you're sitting in, I don't run food and beverage at all.
Got it.
It's outsourced because in our business, food and beverage today is 50% of my manning here. I've knocked off 40-50% of my manning, which means that I run a 150 room hotel with a staffing of 0.35.
And do you think this is the most efficient model? Not only for you, but for everybody?
See, like I said, it's all about execution. Who you bring in to run your F&B, how do you monitor it, how do you ensure that the customer experience doesn't get compromised. So it's it's all in the details, boss.
And to the point what you're also saying, you're getting a brand which kind of competes with standalone brands as well.
Absolutely,
so if you have that.
Every business has a specialist. And let me tell you, and I'm making a very bold statement, that the hoteliers are not the food and beverage specialist. Let me ask you, in the last 10 years, tell me one great food and beverage outlet which has come out of a hotel. They're all standalone.
Asked this question to everybody, right? As a consumer myself, I challenge the same.
मुझे कमरे भरने आते हैं, मुझे होटल चलाना आता है, जिसको F&B मुझसे अच्छा आता है, उसको बुलाओ ना यार. Let him run my F&B.
Totally agree.
He will make money because that's his bread and butter. Yeah. I will overlook it because there's one part of my business which gives me a 90% GOP, which is my room business.
Fantastic.
So this gets neglected. The profitability gets neglected. In fact, can I tell you, if I was paying rent just for the real estate which is occupied by my food and beverage, I probably would have defaulted there. Yeah.
In your model, for whatever reason, let's say you have a 30-day curfew, right? Would you burn? In your model, would you burn because your owners will not earn that kind of money and you still have that outflow?
My model is very clear. Earn before you burn. I will not sign a deal where I don't make money. I am not somebody who wants to do 100 hotels tomorrow morning.
Got it.
I will make sure that the unit P&L of each and every acquisition of mine will be profitable. I'm very clear.
Within the first 2 years.
Yeah, obviously. There is a ramp up, there's a stabilization period, but there has to be clear line. Let me tell you, I have made operational profit in this hotel from month one. Even with month one, when I did 30% occupancy at sub 5,000 rupees, I still broke even. I did not lose money, which means I paid off salaries, I paid off every possible expense, and I still made money.
And where do you think Aliva as a brand in the next 2, 3, 4 years, would it be a pan-national brand?
100%. But I'll tell you what I'm very, 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 very excited about is my second brand, which is Hofton, which is more budget stroke economy.
Got it.
Hofton means hotels where you stay often.
I love
a lot of people have asked me where you got this name from. So
where do you get this name from?
Yeah, so my ex-colleague in Lemon Tree was a guy called Mahesh Iyer. And this was Mahesh's creative brainchild when we were sitting over drinks one day and said, hotel ka naam hi hona chahiye. I loved it so much. I said, Mahesh, I've stolen it from you. Whenever I start my company, I'll
Usko a lifetime subscription de dena. That is the best one, yeah. My lifetime subscription.
He wants shares in Hofton now, yeah, for suggesting the name. So like I said, his creative juice is not mine, but I love the tagline. And hotels, it says hotels where you stay often. That's what often means. So I'll tell you, I was
very European.
Sort of. That's the attempt.
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you where I was coming from. I told you about this 14-15 lakh kamre, 2 lakh branded, 10-12-13 lakh. I am saying that in this, I want to, aggregate maybe 1 lakh rooms. And I'll tell you the biggest pain point. And I've done this. I've met tons and tons of owners in this segment. Because see, I have to do something different. I know that I'm not a brand, so people are not going to come flocking to me. I have to go to people who typically the brands don't reach out to.
Got it.
What is their biggest pain point? The biggest pain point for these guys is not operating the hotel. It's filling the beds. Luckily or unluckily, my background has been sales. I used to be the chief sales and revenue officer for Lemon Tree before I got elevated to my last role as president. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to take these hotels, lock them in through a sales and marketing arrangement rather than a true blue management contract as the industry knows it.
Got it.
So I'm trying to do a little variation there. That's my variation.
So have I understood this correctly? They continue to operate it. However, the sales and the revenue management is yours.
The sales and the offline and online is mine. The revenue management is mine, and the board on top is mine.
But
which
operating
means
is his.
operating is his, which means it is like a franchise plus sales and marketing.
Got it.
Because in my view, and there are a lot of people who are in the franchise business, but in my view, for franchise business to fly, just putting a flag and putting the brand alone is not enough. You have to give sales support. And in a typical franchise operation, as I know, as the industry knows, you typically are not responsible for sales.
I'm with you. But
So that's what I want to do different.
But how do you maintain
Franchise with sales and marketing.
How do you maintain the service standards that you have?
Exactly. So that's I'll tell you, I am looking at minimum operating standards rather than saying, "Ke boss, go the whole hog." You want to put a Hofton tag on top? Hofton ka board lagega. These are min operating standards. These are bare minimum.
I got it. You're talking about Hofton, not Aliva.
No.
Aliva is totally different.
Aliva is a different category.
Hofton you're talking.
Yeah.
That I can understand.
Hofton के लिए. So Hofton से मेरा target 1 लाख कम रहे boss. मतलब half the people watching your show will be say कि इस पागल सरदार को ले आए पूरे इंडिया में ताज के पास 20,000 कमरे हैं, मैरियट के पास 20-22,000 कमरे हैं और ये 1 लाख कमरों की बात कर रहा है. So sorry, you might have to
but
if your audience runs away.
सारे जो visionaries हैं ना सारे पागल ही होते हैं. So it's fantastic.
By the way, he just acknowledged that I'm half mad, but but what I'm trying to say is that I want to do franchise with a twist. And I'm saying it loud and clear. My twist is that I will give sales and marketing support.
Yeah.
That is very clear.
So just to let you know, मैंने ये वाला model vocational training में pan national brand में exactly the same model in 2008 I launched. Yeah.
But were you ahead of your time?
I don't think so. I think I learned a lot, to be very honest. Burned myself, right? Market में थप्पड़ मारे. And you just learn. You just learn from people. You just learn from conversations. You just learn from others, right? Met a lot of, I would say, I won't call them mentors, right? Neither I'll call them my sponsors. Let's just say I met some really intelligent people down the line, and I asked a lot of questions. I'm very inquisitive by nature, and ये नहीं होगा तो ऐसे कैसे होगा? ये नहीं होगा तो ऐसे क्या? अभी आप देखो, the amount of question I'm asking, for me, this is a master class to me, right? Even after 32 years, right? I can learn so much. And I often feel that, knowledge exists and I am just like one speck even today. The viewers will also understand because you've kind of broken it down so nicely, right?
I've been very, very transparent about what I want to do.
Sorry, one more accusation. आपकी industry इतनी transparent नहीं है.
बहुत मैंने जिससे सीखा है, I have learned transparency. And I've tried to follow it in my business model, in my company, in my culture. That's my culture, by the way.
Now, what will also happen is the next 20 years, when you're talking about the right time, the right market size, premiumization, अगर आपने ये compounding नहीं किया,
तो कोई और कर लेगा.
Or people like you, I'm saying, and the new generation is coming.
मैं नहीं करूँगा तो कोई और कर लेगा. I'm very clear.
Veterans यहाँ तक लेके आ गए, अभी यहाँ से जो कम और full marks, right? Because they were operating in a different era. So, where do you see Aliva? We heard about Hofton. Where do you see Aliva, let's say, in the next time?
See, Aliva will be a little different and will not be as fast-paced because with Aliva, I'm trying to create a great mid-market.
And you're creating the brand also.
Mid to upscale product.
ये आपकी legacy brand होगी?
Inshallah. उम्मीद है बॉस. अब क्या होगी, क्या निकल के आएगी? That's the attempt.
नेम तो नहीं है ना आपके लिए?
क्यों नहीं है सर?
मैं पूछ रहा हूँ.
बिल्कुल है. क्यों नहीं? I want to take this company public. Why not, boss? I think I will create enough scale that
पहले value create करो.
That's what I'm saying. The value will come with scale. And like I said, my business model is very clear. Earn before you burn. This will be a profitable company, and this will be a company with very large scale. So this will be IPOable. This is a company which you can take to the market in 5 years, 7 years, depends how efficient or how inefficient I am.
And I only wish to Vaheguru that there's enough. You see success for not for anything else. And I'll tell you where I have immense respect for founders, right? Any kind of a founder. It is when India is going from 3 to 10, the compounding in terms of employment also.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe hospitality is right. If you look at the numbers, I challenge this to anybody. Hospitality has more numbers than IT in India.
Has to.
It is. Even today.
12%.
That's the number. ये तो खाली ऑर्गेनाइज की बात कर रहे हैं. अनऑर्गेनाइज
will be another.
वो तो छोड़ दो. वो तो
Infinite.
Whatever
number.
you see is true, opposite of it is also true. It will be infinite kind of number,
Absolutely.
right? So you're creating that kind of an opportunity. You're creating in tier 2 cities, you're creating in tier 3 cities. मैं आपको एक story बता दूँ. मेरा driver, came from Uttarakhand का है, in the hills, Pauri Garhwal का. And मैंने उसको पूछा, how much, I pay you so much. Is this even enough? He's saying, yeah, absolutely enough, right? And I was paying him with about 25,000 rupees per month. So I said, hypothetical question I asked him. I said, what if somebody had to pay you 15,000 rupees? Where you come from? Would you come downhill and be a driver? He said, absolutely not. At 15,000 rupees?
15,000 back home is so much more than 25,000.
That's what you will be doing. My point is that.
Exactly.
For them not to come down, all right,
exactly,
and
boss.
be in service of others, और ये मजबूरी से करना.
So reverse migration भी होना चाहिए, boss. And why not?
वो आप करोगे. जब आप 1 lakh रूम लेके जाओगे, हॉफ्टन में लेके जाओगे, अलीवा में लेके जाओगे, this is what you will be doing is reverse migration. Or that son or that daughter who's thinking of coming downhill,
doesn't lead to that. There will be enough and more opportunities.
Absolutely.
So
you're carrying that burden of Indian.
So I'll be really blessed if I get that opportunity, and I hope the company scales to the levels that I plan to do.
I have one more accusation.
Hukum.
Hospitality industry is growing. Hospitality education is de-accelerating, right? We are in the business of hospitality, so we are in a different path, but at a skill level. What do you think the reason is? I know my reason, but
let me hear your reason, and I'll add my 2 bits to it, and I'll tell you where I agree or disagree.
Yeah. Okay.
Why do you think the hotels supply is growing faster than ever? Okay? They are saying supply is growing at 10 to 12%, which means 20,000 कमरे broadly 20,000 कमरे ऐड हो रहे हैं.
और 2 लाख का अगर बेस ले लो, करेक्ट.
2 लाख के बेस पे बोल रहा हूँ. 20,000 ब्रांडेड रूम्स, अनब्रांडेड तो ठीक है. 20,000 कमरे, assuming luxury is at 2, economy is at 0.3 budget. So even if you take one, तो 20,000 नए जॉब तो आने चाहिए, 25,000 नए जॉब आने चाहिए. So why are people not?
For this simple reason, I think the hotel industry during the COVID, all right, collectively, maybe some brands did not, right? Or any sector, any industry, where eventually COVID में हुआ क्या? Everybody suffered trauma.
Yeah.
Right? The poor suffered trauma, the middle class suffered trauma. Collectively, the family suffered, right? Within 1 month to that employee or to that family, he's saying, your pain is your pain.
Absolutely.
Right? My pain is my pain. You figure it out yourself. Right? And when things are better, all right, we will handshake. The sentiment, people lost confidence.
But आपको एक बात बोलूं, let me tell you,
sentiment.
You are bang on with all the reasons. But I tell you, the good or the bad part is that हमारी जो जनता है ना, the public has very short memory. So trust me, it's forgotten. It will be forgotten sooner than you can even think.
I'm not disputing that. All I'm trying to say is, companies. You spoke about culture, right? Aliva will be built on that culture. Hofton will be built on that culture. I think even when companies are growing, at the end of the day, the companies which will compound at 20-30% and companies which will compound only at 5%, and most 9% of the new companies will burn. And the culture that if you are working, right, in good times and bad times, I also have your back. So to a founder, right, there should be enough capital.
I wouldn't, so to take you back, I wouldn't blame hotels. I wouldn't blame the way, because this is something which nobody could have even fathomed in the wildest of nightmares. So हर hotel company ने एक reaction लिया. Right, wrong, you don't know.
All I'm trying to say is,
but today, let me tell you, in
hindsight,
they will all be far.
That's my point. That's
more
exactly
compassionate.
My point.
They will be.
मेरा खाली एक ही issue है. If you, when do you practice leadership? In the worst crisis.
Agreed.
In the good time you have.
But now there's a playbook now. Yeah. You've been through this. Nothing can get worse.
So it will kind of come back.
100%.
Really important. And Vikramjit, I'll tell you why. And people like you, right? And the generation will resonate with you only for 2 reasons. You are not a child born with a golden spoon. You bloody worked your way up the ranks, right? The rungs of the ladder as well.
जूते घिसाए
जूते घिसाए, right? और अभी भी घिसा रहे हो.
बिल्कुल
Right?
घिस गया actually. I hope the camera doesn't catch my घिसा हुआ soul, but anyway.
But they'll love it. And after that, leaving it all, fulfilling your entrepreneurial dream, going behind, putting your money, going out there, exposing yourself. At the end of the day, दो चीज होगा. Employees will be at Aliva, maybe employees not Aliva, but your neck will be at wherever you got the funds from. All right,
of course,
you are responsible to them every single day.
I have a responsibility to my investors. I have a responsibility to my childhood friend Anirudh, who wrote a check without even looking at my Excel sheet.
That's because you belong to the Mayo Mafia.
Yeah. I used to rag him in school, so the guy didn't have a choice but to, so I bullied him into writing the first check, and I'll forever be grateful for that.
I'm telling you, your reputation in the market is.
यार और कॉफी लाओ यार.
मैं बता रहा हूँ. थोड़ा तो वो दो, मैं background check करके आता हूँ.
I'm super flattered, my friend.
I'm your friend, but I also do a background check, right? Because at the end of the day, and there's so much of love.
I'm blessed and I'm lucky, boss. मैं और कुछ नहीं बोल सकता.
Respect of your colleague. मुझे इतना भी पता है, there's so many people who want to come and work for you, but you can't get them.
No, I hope I can employ everybody. Yeah.
No.
And I grow so fast.
No, but seriously. So you were talking.
No, what I'm saying is that I have a responsibility to my investors. I have a responsibility to my colleagues who took a leap of faith, boss, right. Because they all left secure jobs to come and join me. So it's equally important for me. Yeah?
Can I give you an unsolicited advice?
हुकुम करो,
right? ये मेरी learning है. हुकुम तो मैं आपको दे रहा हूँ. Treat the fund as debt. Right?
Yeah.
And you will always do a build strategy. That means you need to pay back at a certain, just think of it as debt, right? Whether you're paying 10x of that, X percentage of that, and you have to pay back within a certain period.
It is,
and suddenly you will never,
irrespective of how it's structured, it is a debt here.
Yeah.
आपने कर्ज लिया है. Yeah. वो कर्ज है.
Yeah. Absolutely. Especially in your new entrepreneurial journey, your children, your wife especially, they must have, or rather, I know it for a fact, but a very big emotional anchor for you as well, right? If you are who you are today, sitting confidently as Sardar, is because they prep you up every single day to say, "Ja, fight kar." Right? Talk a little bit about that.
I'll tell you, it's very clear. Whenever you take a decision like that, you are in a very comfortable, secure, cushy job.
Correct.
You've proven yourself, which means that, when you start afresh, you need to prove yourself again. Luckily for me, that bit was already done at Lemon Tree. I'd achieved that status, so to say. To leave all of that and to start something so radical, which means that you don't know कि कल सुबह की रोटी कहाँ से आएगी. You need your family support, and I think I would give full marks to my wife who backed this because she saw the passion in me. And I think to some extent she probably thought that I have the ability to pull it off. So full marks to her. Without her consent, without her permission and her undying support, this would have never happened. Never happened. Yeah. So
are there times that you give up?
नहीं यार वो I have never.
When I say give up, momentarily हो जाता है क्या कर रहा हूँ मैं? I must be supremely mad to do something like this. Right? And there she is,
No, boss. Luckily, she's had to deal with my mood swings. I think I'm going into what you call male menopause, but never ever was the decision questioned or was the decision, one had some thoughts about kya theek kiya, nahi kiya. I think never, not even once it crossed my mind.
I always say, the definition of a man from women.
Exactly.
From women.
So totally. So the whole support, the support system is my wife Tina, and I think if she was not part of this journey of mine, I probably wouldn't have got here.
If I had to ask Tina what she loves about you, what do you think she would say?
She'll draw a blank here. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होगा. She won't know what to say.
But nonetheless.
The reverse will be a laundry list.
Yeah. Tell me, what do you love about Tina?
No, like I said, to be honest, without the support and the backing and, this would not have happened. You see, it was very important that, the family had to be a part of the decision. And in fact, not just part, but proactively prompting me to go for it.
Are you a family person?
Yeah. I believe so.
Yeah.
My wife may not think so, but I am.
But do you think when you go back home, you re-energize to, right? And come back?
I'm a little weird guy. I re-energize every time there's a problem. Status quo.
So problem solving.
मुझे status quo is gets boredom, yaar. Whenever you come, everything is fine, hunky dory. Fuck, life is so boring.
If my employees are listening to this, right? Hopefully they do, right? And if you,
they'll create more problems for me.
They'll resonate exactly. They'll tell you the same thing about me as well. I hate status quo. I just
exactly. I find it very boring.
It's boring.
It's
as a
very
concept itself.
It's an insipid life. अगर कोई रोज सुबह कोई challenge ना हो यार.
और नहीं हो तो तोड़ो.
नहीं हो तो कुछ और करो ना. नहीं हो तो पंगे लो यार.
So nice.
Yeah.
So nice.
Challenge status quo.
I have a list of some quirky questions for you.
I'd love them.
Yeah. So let's see how Vikramjit is going to answer that.
In a more quirkier fashion.
If your brand Aliva was a person, what kind of a personality would it be?
Farhan Akhtar.
Why Farhan Akhtar? I love that guy. Multi-talented?
See, he's not the typical Bollywood but he's my favorite actor. I love the guy.
Yeah.
Director hai, producer hai, actor hai, script writer hai, gaane bhi gata hai.
I love that. Farhan Akhtar, that's a shout out to you. As a founder, what's the one thing you've had to say no to recently, even though it was very tempting for you?
Very, very easy. A lot of assets come to me, and as a founder, it's very easy to say yes because I am the final decision-making authority. But any non-financially viable decision, saying no to it, that's the call.
If Aliva had to go to one dream destination of yours tomorrow, which dream destination would it be?
You're all of India.
Ek.
If my dream would be to put 10 Alivas in Gurgaon.
Wow.
10, not one.
Why?
Because the market can absorb 10, boss.
Interesting. Micro. Is there any quirkiest guest experience you recollect which made a meaningful impact in your life?
Plenty. I'll tell you, yaar, I'll give you so many of them. I'll tell you my experiences. This is, when you look at your life as an executive, back when you were this thing, I'll give you an amazing example. I was sent to the airport. I won't name where. Back in the day and even today, Delhi has a lot of fog business. So flights get cancelled, dime a dozen.
Right.
And we picked up this layover business. We picked up an airline and we had to
And these are last minute.
Absolutely last minute.
Got it.
And we picked up an airline business.
Got it.
It was, I think, a 777. So 300 bande the boss. And buses khatam ho gayi. There were no buses available at the airport.
Because they had to come back. Yeah. Got it.
So you know what I did? I walked down the ramp. This is Delhi airport of 15 years ago.
Purani wali.
I walked down the ramp. वहाँ DTC buses खड़े थे. मैंने हर DTC वाले ओनर को बोला कि जितनी सीट्स हैं सारों के टिकट काट दे. I put 500 rupees in his pocket. ऐसे ये तेरे लिए बस ऊपर लगा दे. And I sent first class, business class, economy passengers in a DTC bus to the hotel.
Beautiful. It's hospitality.
Out of the box.
And it's
not hospitality. अब किसी hospitality veteran को बोलोगे कि आप DTC बस में first class के passenger को बोला कि इस बंदे should not.
ये कब की बात है? 15 साल पहले की बात है. आज की देख लो. Right? Passengers get frustrated at airports.
आज तो लोग तब भी कर लेंगे. 15 साल पहले no one would dare to put a business class or a first class passenger in a DTC bus.
Excellent.
So I've done mad things all my life.
This is the quick on the box kind of thing. If you could steal one iconic feature of a hotel brand, क्या होगा?
Profitability. Simple, yeah. Dhanda is all about profit, boss. See, I'm in the business of hotels. There are many hoteliers who are much better than me. I want to be the best in the business of hotels.
Beautiful. Imagine a headline about your company 5 years from now. Aliva separate, Hofton separate. What do you think that
So
headline would be?
the company is called Liberate Hotels. So Liberate goes public. Simple.
Beautiful. I love the clarity of your thought process, my brother. I love it.
Thank you, my friend.
Last, what advice do you have for me and for my business?
For your business,
Sanjay?
I think, so 2-3 things I'll tell you. One is, I think executive education, the hotel version of it. I think there is so much of an opportunity, so much. See, hotels are coming. There are people who are getting promoted ahead of the time.
वो जो compounding वाला
Boss,
effect,
ahead of the time. Because
they need upskilling.
यार अगर 20,000 कमरे बन रहे हैं तो आपको बॉस नए जनरल मैनेजर भी तो चाहिए. हाँ, आपको 1,500 जनरल मैनेजर चाहिए. ठीक है, 200-300 जनरल मैनेजर चाहिए. Because हाँ, the complexity of the role of a general manager is something which people may not be ready for, because back in the day when there were very few hotels, you would probably start your career at 20 and become a general manager at 45. Today, within 7 years of your career, you can become a general manager of a small hotel, which means that the complexities of that role is something you may not have learned with experience in that tenure of 7 years.
Yeah.
So in my view, the big opportunity, the biggest opportunity for you, and that is where you will make real money, because you don't make money from students here. You make money where people will gladly send their general managers for the HBS equivalent of hospitality.
You're absolutely right, and
the AMP equivalent.
and you know it for a fact. From an ISH perspective, I'll just kind of tell you is executive education, continuous education at different levels. We are working with.
I'm saying do a general manager program.
For sure, we're doing that as well. We're just with dealers and all.
And existing general managers come to you, or existing number twos come to you, and when they go back, they're prepared for.
I understand what you're saying, and exactly that's what I'm saying. We are kind of doing it with multiple hotel companies today. But from an ISH, when you look at ISH, the next 5 years, what will fuel our growth are two, right? Undergraduate, we are consolidating, we are getting bigger. Adjacencies of programs will come. Business as usual is postgraduate education, which is masters, right, in that space, and executive education, right? And I believe eventually, if the pie is at 100 or I index the revenue at 100 rupees, executive education by 2028 would be about 25 to 30 rupees.
Yeah, maybe more.
Yeah.
In terms of profitability, it will be a much higher
Of course
number.
it is.
It will be a
70%.
most profitable segment.
But
is
more
my prediction.
importantly, I'll tell you what, it's also a responsibility
100%.
for institutions like us.
To give back to the industry,
100%.
and also make money.
Of course.
And it is a very commercially viable segment to be in, if you ask me.
The only reason you can give good quality is you have to be in business. For that, you have to be profitable.
100%.
Right? But it is also a responsibility. So we carry both the burdens as well, right? One is the responsibility towards the industry, and I'm talking about, of course, the hotel, but hospitality economy per se, right? Because when the premiumization happens, किसी को पता नहीं कैसे करना, and we want to be positioned right there.
Completely.
Or advice दीजिए.
The rest I will charge for. Free advice only this.
देखिए, I promise you.
I said profitability. You know why?
I promise you 1 million views. So आपका तो monetize ऐसे ही हो गया. But anything else?
No, that was my 2 bits on your business. You know your business much better than I do. But I see a big opportunity. I see a big vacuum there, because I think people get the role before they're ready for the role. Yeah. And that's how growth is. And in a high growth environment, a capsule program which teaches him every aspect from P&L to, he knows operations. You don't need to teach him too much of operations, but you need to teach him the other aspects. Risk management, compliances, P&L responsibility.
Absolutely.
I think if you have a holistic program,
We have that.
So go above the ordinary, go above the regular.
So we are a business school for hospitality.
Which you know that. Yeah, exactly. And therefore, I feel that's one big gap, I think, and that's a huge opportunity here.
Vikramji, I want you to give 2 messages out there, right? One is to a potential student who still looks at hospitality and the business of hospitality with skepticism. Why should they?
So my view is, boss, let me disrupt a little bit and tell you that there is no better time to be in hospitality than now. And rather than going and applying for a job, try and be an entrepreneur in whichever small fashion that you can. So embrace entrepreneurship right away. There is no right time or wrong time. You don't have to wait till, I was 48 when I became an entrepreneur. You don't have to be that old here. You can become an entrepreneur the minute you're out of ISH. So why not? Go for it. This is the time for entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. And to a young entrepreneur who wants to emulate you, or own a hotel company, right? Which is not very capex heavy, asset light, but not necessarily have access to funds, right? What would you want to tell?
See, I'll tell you, it's very simple. Your business model should be very, 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 very robust. Earn before you burn. Be very clear. And have sufficient backup for the next 2 years. Assume that you will not make money in the first 2 years of your business. So keep a backup for that. If that is sorted, you can never fail.
Which comes to
2 साल का ammunition आप लेके चलो.
Which comes to the last segment. How did you?
I thought we were over.
how did you feel about today and this whole conversation?
No. Listen, online, offline, in front of the camera, or off the camera, talking to you is always a pleasure. I've been paid to do this, I guess. But But it's always a pleasure to be on your show, to talk to you, to meet you, to interact with you, have a drink with you.
Yeah.
So I hope we get many more opportunities.
Absolutely, Vikramjit. And I started off by saying what you eventually kind of, to the younger audiences, learn the business economics of, I would say, hoteliering, right? From a person who's seen it all, who's done it all, जिसके अभी भी जूते घिस रहे हैं, right? At this age, leaves it all behind at a very high graded office to start something of his own venture. That's excellent. To the older audience, I would say, I think this conversation, after a very long time, I would say, in my opinion, I wouldn't call it explosive, but the fact that it was in your face and a lot of myths, contradictions, or perhaps something which was festering in my mind, I had asked Vikramjit and he was absolutely open to answer them. So I really, really appreciated his candor, right? Because at the end of the day, he's also part of a larger industry. But what I realize is he's kind of giving back and challenging the norm, not only in his business model, but also the kind of culture that he's created. So once again, on behalf of Vikramjit, signing off, salam, namaste, sat sri akal, and adab.
Thank you.
Thank you.